everyone. Welcome once again to another episode of Hoop Room at Hoopsters. Hello, I'm Bala, and today I'm in conversation with Dr. Sangeeta Saxena, the highly respected co-founder of Enfold Proactive Health Trust, a gynecologist, author, counselor, and an activist too. We are here to discuss what we need to know about sexuality education and how to destigmatize the subject. You know, when I asked her as to what she wanted to talk about, she said, I want to talk about why, when, what, how, for whom, and by whom of sexuality education. So, Doc, that's very interesting. A lot of questions there. So, let's talk about it. But before that, how did you get into this journey? Tell us a bit about Enfold.
Thank you, Bala, for inviting me here. It is lovely to talk about my pet subject. And I say we because this journey into being a sexuality educator.
I would
Can we
request
mute our
everybody.
mics?
Yeah, can you everybody mute the mics, please? Sarika, could you please mute your mic? Sarika, could you mute your mic, please? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Sangeeta, I think. Yes.
Your question of why I got into this sexuality education space is because I was working as a gynecologist at that point of time in 2001. That's when my colleague Dr. Shoiba Saldana and myself, both of us were gynecologists in St. John's Hospital here in Bangalore. And we were seeing the effects of lack of sexuality education among younger and younger people. This is something so normal and natural. It's a part of our lives. And why should lack of information about something which is so much an inherent part of our lives be landing our young people into issues which were completely preventable? And pregnancy was the least of them. In those days, HIV was also fairly rampant, I should say. And at that point of time, we decided to, okay, let's go into schools, especially high schools, and start talking about sexuality with the students. So that's how I think our personal experience of being gynecologists drove us into this, and also an awareness that this is sorely lacking in our society.
And over the years, what have you seen, experienced, and discovered in this journey as a co-founder, or dealing with schools and corporates and government organizations? Or just on a surface level, what have you experienced on a general level?
So on the surface level, initially when we started 2001, 2002, when we went to schools and we spoke to the principals about it, they were all very keen to have it. They wanted it because they knew how this lack was playing out in their schools, this lack of this education. So they were keen, but often the opposition over the years, I find that the parents have the point that they don't feel equipped to talk about it, that still persists. So they would rather have somebody else talk about it. And
Sarika, could you please unmute, please?
But slowly, that is also.
Hello.
We got to do something about
Ratma Goenka, can you please mute? Can everybody please mute your mics? Thank you very much. Because we're getting a lot of participants coming in. So really appreciate if everybody can mute their mics. Thank you very much. Hello, could you? Doc, let's wait for some time because you're getting a huge amount of participants.
Okay, I think we started a little earlier also. We started
we did about 2 minutes early. Yes, I think please switch off your mics, everybody, and your videos. Thank you very much. Yes, John. What did you see in the general public? What was the feedback, the way people reacted?
Yeah, so as I was saying, the principals, the teachers knew that this was required, but the parents were all mostly in denial, and also they were not aware. Because for them, what happens is that for them, their child, their adolescent child, maybe there's one or maximum two adolescent children in their family, surrounded by so many adults and other people. So, what they see of that adolescent in their homes is very different from what teachers see with 30 adolescents sitting in a classroom. So the experience of the parents of their adolescents' sexuality is very different from what the teachers and principals wants these sessions. But the parents were not so keen, but increasingly they're also becoming very keen. And there is this third teacher, as I call it, the third teacher of sexuality, which is our media. And that has been well on smaller and smaller devices. So that teacher has spread everywhere. So, yeah, that's what I see.
Okay. You have written books and also worked with authorities to develop policies on women's safety and establish PG diploma and certificate programs in universities. So, is there a common thread around all this that you're doing?
Yeah. So Enfold started this in 2001, 2002, and we adopted a 360-degree approach right at that time. We said it's not enough to just go to one stakeholder and just speak with children. No, we need to speak with the parents and the teachers. Yes. And then we need to get this into the social science textbook or the English, the language textbooks about personal safety and about being assertive or being responsible or being accountable. So we were parallelly working with the education department and the Department of Women and Child Welfare and with private institutions like the colleges. So initially we were just offering certificate courses, but again they were to the students of studying in a college. Then slowly over time we started a diploma course in Christ University. And then on these topics, and then finally we got a toehold into the B.Ed course. So in the B.Ed course in Christ University, since 3 years, the personal safety, sexuality students come out as teachers. They would know how to talk to children about personal safety, sexuality, and all of that. So that was one aspect. Then we wanted to get it into the curricula of MBBS, the nursing, psychologists, counselors, social workers, the police academies. So we were working with all of these stakeholders, and I'm very happy to say that currently we are training teachers of graduate and postgraduate courses of 5 disciplines in gender equity, personal safety, sexuality education, so they can teach their students who will be tomorrow's social workers, tomorrow's counselors, tomorrow's teachers, tomorrow's nurses, as well as people who work with disability and people with. It was one aspect. Another aspect was to get it into the policy, because all this I can keep doing, but then if there is no policy, there is no law, there is no danda saying you should have it. So we got the opportunity to be part of 2016 that was passed. So there, and then more recently we are also working with the Madhya Pradesh government, so to bring about a change at a systemic level, to have policies and laws in place that respect human sexual development and the right to safety and dignity of all of us, whatever be our age.
No, you must have faced some kind of resistance through this journey, isn't it? Considering you started so early.
Yeah, but again, not much. Because we always presented this as a value-based education, and we never kind of challenged people's beliefs or said, no, you shouldn't believe like this or you should always do like this. There were no shoulds. There was only an invitation to explore and to look at human rights and each individual's rights, and whether it is value based. Are you hurting yourself or are you hurting another person while satisfying? You're always there. In fact, in one of the sessions, I remember there were a lot of people from you know a background where they were they were brothers and sisters in a Christian institution. I was doing this workshop, and at the end of it, one of the brothers, the religious brothers, he came up and he was giving the vote of thanks, and he said, when the workshop started, I was wondering what you're going to say and what you're going to teach, but actually you have taught us the spirituality of sexuality. So we didn't really face an opposition as such. We don't want your work anymore. That was fairly early in our journey. But otherwise, we have been reaching we used to reach about 20,000 children every year. And our work has only expanded and become more.
Okay, looks like you're a very popular dog because we seem to have a house full, almost. Okay, it's a full house story. And yeah, so thank you for being on this show. And can we come to the subject of the day? Okay, sexuality education. The first question, a very simple question, is what's the difference between sexuality education and sex education? Is there a difference at all?
Huge difference. Sex education is a very small part of sexuality education. Sex education is about, more or less, if I should say, it's the mechanics of sex. What goes where, and then what happens, what's the consequence. That is sex education. Sexuality is actually a way of being, and how your in our entire life, we are sexual beings. We are alive. And as long as we are alive, we have our sexuality with us. Now, we may be asexual, but the way we express our gender, the way we experience our gender, the way we experience our sexuality, our romantic feelings, the way we dress, the way our body language, there's so much around all of this. So sexuality encompasses everything. All your beliefs, your attitudes, your behaviors around all of this is sexuality. So that's a much wider circle. And in that, a small part is sex education.
Known you for so long, I always knew you talk about abuse was your, main focus when I met you initially. When I talked to you yesterday, you said it was about. I'm sorry. Nandini, could you mute your mic, please? Thank you. Yeah, sorry, Doc. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. When I asked you what subject you want to talk about, you said sexuality. Why did you say that? Why did you choose this subject?
Why? Because there's a lack of this. There's a lack of talking about, not only a lack of education around this, there is negation of sexuality, which actually begins in the womb and comes to an end when the person is no more.
Nandini, will you please mute your mic? Thank you.
So sexuality, and if we don't support children and adolescents and sometimes adults in experiencing their sexuality without guilt and in expressing it with responsibility towards themselves and others, then we have a problem on our hands. And that problem shows up as gender-based violence, it shows up as child sexual abuse, as sexual harassment, as dowry harassment, as so many things. So we are busy fixing, by making laws and laws and laws. If you do this, if you harass a child, if you do this, workplace harassment, this is the law, that is the law. What is the underlying issue? Why do we need all these laws? Because people really don't know how to manage themselves. They are just going around doing what they're doing, and then yeah.
What do you mean by managing yourself?
So sexuality is, so we have sexual feelings, isn't it? A good number of people have sexual feelings, and here I will not be talking about people who identify as asexual. I'm talking about people who identify. So sexuality is actually comes to us as a feeling, and it is a feeling that even a child experiences. See, please don't confuse sexual feelings with the desire to have sex. Please don't conflate these two. That's a problem. But when a child is experiencing sexual pleasure by touching its genitals, there is a pleasure in it, right? And later on, we want this child to learn to not touch their genitals in front of others. And we also want to teach the child the sexuality etiquettes, that we keep certain parts of our bodies covered in front of others. We don't casually just talk about it. We don't touch ourselves in these parts. Now I can run my hand through my hair right now and nobody will say anything, right? But there are certain parts of my body that I should not touch in front of people. So all of that has to be taught, and if it is not taught, then we have issues. Yeah, and the way we have been teaching it is by saying shame, shame, poppy shame. You've got some parts in your body that are full of shame, and the reverse is that there is respect in some parts of your body, which people can take away. This is such a skewed way of trying to teach the child sexuality etiquettes around clothing, around touching. We just mix it up with shame and respect, and then everything falls apart. It's something dirty, it's something bad. You shouldn't do it until you're of this age, until I have found a partner for you, until then, and it has been all solemnized, then start your sexuality, switch it on, and give me grandchildren. So you do need this education right from early onwards.
So how early would you want it to be? Would start?
So I think the first and foremost educators of anything, all the life skills, anything that we learn is through our parents and our immediate family members, the caregivers. So that is when it starts, when the child is born, when you're cleaning up the child, what is the expression on your face? And then when you're naming the parts of the body for the child, are you missing out the genitals? And then that is the first time the child learns that there is silence around these parts. They don't even have a name. Everything in the body has a name. My parents ask me about it, but this part, nobody says anything. So that part. So naming the part, and now I'm not saying name them as penis, scrotum, vagina, vulva. No, if English is your mother tongue, if English is a language spoken in your house, please do. But if it is not, then use your mother tongue, in your native tongue. Give proper names. And if you don't know what the proper names are, because we have been silent around this for a very long time, so our languages have lost these words. If you don't have these words, then please use the words that we use for the function of these parts at least. Call them susu place or potty place. But please don't give them some ambiguous words like flower or parrot and things like that, because that happens. Parents are giving it some euphemistic name like that, and then later one child did go up to the mother had said, this is your flower, and the child went up to the mother. Child was 6 years old, playing with an uncle, and then she came to the mother and said, "Uncle is touching my flower." And the mother said, "It's fine," because she thought she's talking about a flower in the garden. But actually, the child was reporting sexual abuse. The mother said, "It's all right." So the child went back to play with the uncle. When the abuse became more severe, then it came to light. So it's very important we give unambiguous proper names to the child. So that's around 2 years of age, you are naming parts of the body, right? Then you start teaching the personal safety rules about clothing, touching, talking. We keep these parts covered in front of others. Bache, you see how all of us are covered? No, it's very hot, very hot. No, at least wear your chaddi. So that's the way to teach, and we have, Bala, we have produced apps for this, information apps, the Surakshit app and Bal Suraksha app. These are free downloadable apps in 10 languages, which support children learning personal safety. The parents can use it. So parents become and the family caregivers become the first teachers. And then when the child begins to go to school, preschool, maybe what, 2.5, 3, they're going to preschools. That's the message gets reinforced by the teachers and the caregivers over there.
Okay, you're talking of talking sexuality to kids. What happens as they grow older? Let's say start from second standard or third standard, as they get older. How much does it change? Isn't it also important, and where does it lead to?
Yeah. Second, third, fourth, till that standard, we are still still talking about these personal safety rules. Because what is happening in these spaces is that third standard, fourth standard, and the children will surround, especially boys, they will surround one boy who is not that macho kind, and they will pull down the shorts of the child and laugh at the child. This happens to be a very common way of bullying their classmates. So we talk about how we follow these rules for ourselves, and we have no right to pull away somebody's clothes from these parts. We have no right to talk to them in a manner which is derogatory about these parts, and we have no right to show them these parts or touch them in these parts. So we are bringing in that aspect for third or fourth standard. We also make space for socio-sexual play that happens between children from 3 years to 7 years. They often play with each other and they touch each other's genitals, and it's part of their normal sexual development. And that has to happen because sexuality involves two people at least, right? Sexual expression later on involves at least two people. So if I'm scared of touching any genitals of anybody, then how will I develop as a sexual being? So by nature, when a child is born, they will touch their own selves, and when they're a little older, then they will touch their peers. This is important. They will touch their peers while playing spontaneously. They will do that. We need to make space for it and explain to them that nobody older should join this game. And so it's okay. We play this when we are young. So that happens till third, fourth standard. The talk about these rules and consent and not forcing ourselves on people, not pulling people's clothes down. And once puberty starts, from fifth, sixth, seventh standard onwards, we explain all the functions. We explain the diversity in sexes, female, male, intersex. We talk about diversity in gender expressions, and we explain the processes, and we say, let's have respect for every part of our body, and let's have respect for every function of our body. So that is brought in, and the romantic feelings that children from say 7th standard, adolescents, they begin to experience crushes and romantic feelings. So then we start discussing that. And then consent and respect for each other comes in a big way.
Sexuality.
Hello. Yeah. Doc, one thing, some things I hear very regularly when I talk to parents and, in school sometimes, is that we never had all these subjects in our age, so why should we have it now? How would you answer that?
Yeah. So first thing is that we never had these subjects in our education, yes. But child sexual abuse and harassment of people is not something that is new. It has existed since millennia. Okay, so that's something to be addressed. Because we haven't addressed it, it has become so huge now. And the government of India study said that 53% of our children have experienced of the, they interviewed around 12,000 children, and among those 12,000 children, 53% said that they had experienced some form of sexual abuse. So one thing is this, that the problem is there. Secondly, okay, we got by. Many of us would have experienced some kind of abuse or harassment, some kind of touch, unwelcome touch, and sexual touch in a bus, on a street. Haven't we experienced that? So the problem is still there. Thirdly, if you are not teaching, world has changed quite a bit, right? When I was studying, there was no concept of a mobile phone. And I remember the time the landline first came and we got our phone, and we could make an STD call, right? So, but now everything is available, the internet, the world is on your fingertips. So if you are not going to talk about it, somebody else will and is talking about it. And you're going to not prepare your children for the world that is present today. You're not preparing them. We had a case where a 6-year-old child was playing with the cousins, and this was a situation where the mother and the 2 sisters had left their children so that they could go for medical treatment. So 4 cousins are playing. The oldest is 6-year-old in the care of the grandmother, who is short-sighted. Right now, when the mother returns, she finds that these 4 children are stark naked playing some sexual game, and it is not the socio-sexual kind of play that happens. This was a different type. So she's like, what happened? What have you seen? Like, how come you're doing this? So that 6-year-old child said that online classes are going on, and I was asked to see this video or something, some assignment was there, and the grandmother, of course, didn't know what is happening. So he saw that video, and under the video there were ads, and one ad was of clothes. So he clicked on that. That opened another window where there were more ads, and there were some ads of people in undergarments. So he clicked on that, and with 3 clicks he was in a porn site. So he was seeing it, and then of course we observe, we see, we imitate, we act out. So that's what he was doing. So if you don't do it, somebody else will. And you also make your children more vulnerable to predators. Predators really go for children who they feel will be shy, will not know, will not speak up, or have not had this education. Yeah.
But then most of the parents also don't know how to begin the conversation. So how do you begin the conversation?
Yes, Bala, there are so many things we don't know, no? Like when the cars came around, we didn't know how to drive the car, but didn't we all learn? There are so many avenues now for parents to learn how to teach their children personal safety.
Okay, parents want to be spoon-fed, so tell me how to be spoon-fed.
Then they go
Wants
to
to learn.
Surakshit app. Surakshit app you can download, you can use it. It's a free app in 10 languages. You can go through this along with your child. It has all the personal safety in it. The Bal Suraksha app has a tab called Personal Safety that has age-wise. From 0 to 2 years, what do you do? From 2 to 4, what do you do? That way we have talked about sexuality education.
Does understanding sexuality help reduce abuse?
Does understanding sexuality help prevent abuse?
Reduce, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, I would say yes. I would say yes. Now, there are many ways we can think about this. So, one thing, why child sexual abuse, especially? Because in child sexual abuse, the predators, what they do is they groom the child. First, they groom the family or the institution. They gain access to the child by pretending to be all very safe person and talk about child safety. We should have strong laws and policies. And then once they have access to the child, they alone, they have gained the trust. So the parents may leave the child alone, or they may be a family member themselves. So they have access to the child, and then they will start engaging with the child, not in a sexual way. Initially, they are just getting the trust of the child and a bond with the child, and then they begin to sexualize the relationship. So and then they abuse. So abuse is one of the last things. They don't immediately, today I see this child and today I've assaulted the child. No, no, that will result in the kind of cases you see in the newspapers, right, where the child has been assaulted, usually by a stranger. But those are very, very few. Most of the abuse is done by people known to the child. So they are in no hurry. They have access to the child for the lifetime. Why would they draw attention to themselves? So when they are breaching the boundaries of the child, now if the child has been encouraged and told the correct names, like this child came and said, no, uncle is touching my flower, because she thought it was little odd, right? So that is how abuse can be prevented. Like the predator can be identified in the grooming period itself, and if some action can be taken. The other thing is sexuality education also supports people to not become predators, not abuse others in a sexual way. So it works both.
Minita, could you just mute your mute your mic, please? Minita Sharma. Hello.
I think they're all quiet now.
Yeah. Yes.
Sexuality education would also make our reporting of abuse, our response to abuse, a response of a police person, of a doctor, of a nurse, social worker.
Minita? Oh, sorry. You got a total house full. It's tough to control at this stage. Vinita, could you please mute your mic? Thank you.
Yeah, somebody is asking for the name of the app. I'll just type that. Surakshit app and the Bal Suraksha app.
Good evening. I'm Ridhima here. Can I ask a question, please?
Ridhima, we'll ask questions next 10 minutes.
Okay, all right.
We'll start with any questions.
Yeah, so the response of all these people, stakeholders, would also be empowering, not victim blaming, not finding fault with the victim, not re-traumatizing the victim, but they would be perpetrator focused to build the responsibility and accountability in the perpetrator.
But don't you think a program has to be first started with the parents?
So Bala, there is no first, second, third over here. That's why we adopted a 360-degree approach. So we do police training, doctors training, all of that we do. We work with the government. We try to get it into the curriculum. So in Telangana, government textbooks have these messages. We work with them to insert it into the textbooks from grade 1 to grade 10. Right? So we need it all around.
But okay, why are some schools adopting and some governments adopting? Shouldn't just this be open and actually adopted across the country? So where is the issue?
The issue is actually, I feel we are all the products of the same society. So if there is inhibition among the parents to talk about it, the same inhibition is also there in the policymakers. They also feel that, oh, this is too much for our children, it will corrupt them.
Okay, so how do you get them around?
So you just go on and on and on. It's very difficult to change norms, Bala. Norms don't change, beliefs don't change in a day.
I know.
But I see a lot of shift, and I'm so happy to see the young people and how they carry on, and the diploma course, all our students, they're so open of the diversity in sexuality, so embracing of all of this. It's wonderful to see that.
But tell me, what's the situation globally? Are people in other countries having this sexuality education?
Yeah, it varies again from country to country. So some countries will completely ban it. And in many European and America and other countries, it has been a part of their curriculum for a long time. For a long, long time.
Has it really brought a difference in the society?
So it has made their children more aware that this is abuse. But if you ask a change in society, well, no, because toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, that is there in almost 90% more of the cultures across the world. And this can be linked to the way patriarchy has been practiced, oppressive patriarchy, which on this earth, I would say 99% of the cultures have experienced this patriarchy, and that is 10,000 years old. So now we are trying to shift beliefs that have been internalized by people over 10,000 years. Now, if you look at mythology, right? So many stories in our mythology are about kidnapping, about pulling people's clothes, about harassment.
You know, very interestingly, I shared the post of our talk today with a group, and very cutely, and friends of mine. And one of them asked me something very interesting is, Bala, I wonder what parents are going to react if he gets 100 marks in this subject and fails in maths and physics. Okay, so it's an interesting thought. So, do our parents thinking that way? Here is, we get sexuality education. Will it actually corrupt him instead of, him or her? Vis-a-vis educating.
Yeah. So we confuse innocence with ignorance, right? So innocence is no guilt. That's all. So every child is innocent. Now, ignorance is not knowing the name that this is called vulva or this is called my susu place, but the ignorance was that the child was taught that this is your flower. Another father had told his male child that this is your parrot. Now, if this child was to tell the teacher that somebody is touching my parrot, what will she say? What does she understand? So they're confusing innocence with ignorance. Secondly, what they're doing is they have categorized knowledge of sex with corruption. Knowledge of sexuality with corruption. They have दिमाग में भर गया है. The moment I learn about how sex happens, I'll go and do it. No, WHO has proved by various studies that knowledge of how sex happens and what happens after, what can happen after that, delays the first encounter of first sexual activity of adolescents and young people. So not being research based, not looking at evidence, but going by some idea in your head, and then, but that doesn't make it true. These are the very same children who are running away from homes, who are getting pregnant and running from clinic to clinic, trying to get an abortion without the support of their parents, which they need.
So, in your experience, what are the strange things that you have seen or heard or interacted with? The kind of questions parents have asked you, schools have asked you, officials have asked you. We lost you, Doc. Hello. Are you there? Hello.
Not just by the question by the chat. No, these apps are available only on Android phones, not on iPhones. And if you want more information, then you should.
Sorry, Doc. Some issue. Okay. Hello, Doc, can you hear me?
Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. I mean, I lost you. But anyway, yeah, I would like to open this to questions now because we got under just 20 minutes left. The next 10 minutes, anyone's free to ask questions. Please do either write on chat or you can come online and ask.
Thank you so much, Bala, for that. Yes. Hi, I'm Ridhima Iyer. I'm in Guwahati, Assam. So my question is, so in what detail should one go with teenagers, regarding regarding sex education? I mean, because there's so much there. I mean, in what detail do we talk to them
Actually,
about?
not very different, whatever the age of the child. When we talk about the age appropriateness, it just means that you're using words that the child can understand and can their curiosity and the question that they're asking is answered. So if a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old asks, how did the baby get inside there? Then you would use words like, there is a baby cell where bodies are made up of cells, there is a mama cell, there's a dada cell, and these cells are very small, so the mama and dada have to come very close, so otherwise the cell won't enter the baby house, and baby house is in mother's body. How does a baby come out? Just like there is a pipe for the food to go in and air pipe for the for breathing, there is a passage for the baby to come out in mama's body. That's called the baby birth passage. That's why mama's bodies are different from dada's bodies. So you have answered everything. Only thing will happen for a teenager is you will, instead of mother cell, father cell, you will say egg, sperm, vagina, penis, womb, uterus, birth, right? And you will also bring in, because the curiosity for a 3-year-old is only a curiosity. They are as curious about how babies are born as they are about how rainbow forms. There is no difference, right? But for a 13-year-old, there is an urgency here, because their body is getting ready to perform those actions. So they want to know how, where. So they need and they're experiencing it so high in their bodies. They're experiencing it. I'm feeling sexually attracted. I'm feeling sexually aroused. I'm getting erections. Just walking around, I'm getting an erection, right? How do I manage it? So all of that also you have to address. So that's why it has to be a sexuality education and not just sex education. Whereas for very small children, it is just these little information like this will be enough.
So the thing is, so getting, same sex relationships and even, the thing about porn and how easily it's about, with teens, with a
Sorry,
12
what
or
is
13-year-old.
available? Did you mean contraception?
No. I meant like, about the same-sex relationships, about the LGBTQ
yes.
issues, and even, how easily porn is accessible. And, there are so many, I mean, there are so many categories or segments that are there. So do you even talk about those things?
Absolutely, 100% you have to talk about these. So that's why our curriculum, right from grade 1, when we talk to children, we speak in the plural. When we don't speak the binary at all. So when we are saying, your people have different, their sex is different, like that's what is written on your birth certificate. It may be written male or female or any other. We leave it at that. But from 6th, 7th, 8th grade onwards, we are talking about intersex. We are talking about the diversity in gender, because this becomes apparent. The gender identity of the child is from 3-4 years onwards, right? So we are talking about, we are different genders. There is no work that can't be done by any other gender. There is no particular way of dressing. There's no particular pronoun that you need to use. And here I'm answering one of the questions here. Yes, how did I get to know what my gender is? It's an inner sense. You just have a sense of it. It is innate. You may express it or you may not express it, right? So gender experience is different, gender identity experience. And I will look around in my environment, and I'll see with whom does this feeling kind of match, and I might label myself as a girl or a boy or any other words I may use, a she boy, a
Bro,
trans person.
you
uh, do that, and then I will choose the pronoun that I want to use, which will best express what I feel inside. And there are various kinds of pronouns that people can use. So you do have to talk about all of this. And Enfold has videos on this on our YouTube channel. If you go to our website, you will find under resources videos, and there you will find a link to all our playlists that have how to talk to children about personal safety. With some disturbance, Redmi Note 9.
Somebody's asked, can a 4-year-old boy, when he sees a porn video, just get the feeling or likes to start to act like that?
आएगा क्लास में
So they will get the feel, they will, first of all, they'll be very curious what's happening here, but we are also governed by so many biological processes.
अबे CGSA में जाना
Please, can you, with so many biological processes, and hormones play a huge role. So a fetus inside the womb also experiences an erection, but that doesn't mean that they're having sexual feelings towards somebody and they want to have sex. So that's why I was trying to differentiate this. Don't assume that a sexual feeling is the same as wanting to have sex. Right? You get a taste of salt. You don't call it the taste of sugar. Right? We have 5 different tastes that 6 we can taste. So please separate the sexual feeling from the feeling of wanting to have sex with somebody. Separate it from wanting to have a romantic relation with somebody. Separate it from wanting to have a friendship, a deeper friendship connect with somebody.
Hi,
I
have a question.
1 minute, Shilpa. There is a video on how to talk to adolescents about sexuality. There's a video on how to talk to young children about personal safety. These 2 are there. There are many other videos. In fact, there are 17 videos in our playlist that we made to train all the teachers that we were talking about of different disciplines. These are available for anyone to see. Yeah, your question, Shilpa?
Hi, Sangeeta. I'm Shilpa from Guwahati. So my question is, like, when we are educating our child about sex, so how do we present this word sex? I mean, how do we introduce this word to them? Like, it is about, sex is about just, procreating a child, or is it a feeling, or, I mean, how do we actually introduce this word to them?
So I would say not to introduce words, like especially when the children are small, like 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, not to introduce words that they don't really need right now, but answer all their questions. So like this 3-year-old, I would just explain the whole thing. Baby comes out like this, baby cell enters like this. I have not used the word sex at all. But supposing my child, and this is what happened, my 9-year-old child, we were driving, this is several years ago, and there was a big billboard saying, rape victims don't die, they wish they had. Right? Now, this is a very old message, right? Almost 20 plus years old. So my daughter read it and she said, what is rape? So I said, we talked about how Mama and Dada, when they want to make a baby, they come very close together. But when somebody does it, by force on another person, the other person doesn't really want it, then that is called rape. Then she was like, but why does the person want to die? I said, I don't agree with this message. Somebody has put it up. But sometimes there may be a situation like the person has a baby now and they're wondering what to do. They're pregnant. They don't want this baby because they think of this father. was this kind of a person and they don't want this baby. So then she asked, then, but can't she get rid of the baby? So she was asking about abortion, right? Now I didn't use the word abortion, but I explained to her that, well, yeah, there are ways, but sometimes a person may not want to do that either. They may think, oh, what has this baby done? Why should I take this baby's life? Right? So there are so many ways you can explain the whole thing. The main point is get to the question in the child's mind and satisfy that. Right? Just as you would explain how a rainbow forms to a 3-year-old is different from how you would explain it to a 13-year-old. And always ask, what do you think? How do you think it happens? Then you know where the gap is or what the misconception is. Be authentic.
Somebody else said, I asked a question, my 8-year-old daughter is curious about how breasts look and feel. How do I educate her?
Yeah, so you can take the help of pictures, drawings, and you can show other parts of the body. It feels soft, just like you can feel this muscle, it is soft, right? So always you can use diagrams. There are nice picture books that explain all of this. So take help. There's a lot of material available. Talk to your friends, talk to other people, find out how did you answer it, what can I do? Practice it. Practice these things, conversations with your friends, with your spouse, with your partners, before talking to children or teenagers.
Okay, since all the questions are from parents, what would be interesting is, can you tell me where parents are going wrong?
No, Sir Bala, no, I don't want to say parents are going wrong. They're doing the best that they can, knowing what they know. It's not the parents who have, they don't have, they have the well-being of the children at the heart. Teachers also have the well-being of the children at their heart. But many a time the media doesn't have that well-being. The advertisement don't have that well-being. They have the well-being of the product, the producer, the company at heart. So I would place the teachers, the parents and the child in the same boat. They have the same goals in life, to be responsible, to be law-abiding, to be, whatever. And they need to speak up, counter the messages that are coming on the media. If you're watching a movie where there's a lot of things being shown, don't just switch it off. Don't just stand in front of the TV. Tell the child that, listen, they're showing something that adults do in private. When they care for each other, when they love each other, when they're showing it like this and all of us can see it, it's making me feel uncomfortable. I'm going to switch it off or change the channel. So now the biggest lesson the child has learned is that it's not that two adults do it when they're in love and care. No. The biggest lesson the child has learned is that if my parent is uncomfortable about something to do with sexuality, they're talking to me about it. Now I can also talk about something that is sexual with my parents, right? So parents can equip themselves. There's enough material available, and you learn it and you do it.
Okay, well, we got time for one last question before we wrap up.
There is one question in the chat. I was just wondering, what are your opinions on being a sexuality other than hetero? It is absolutely a part of nature, it's part of our diversity. Diversity makes us strong, and I'm all, it's not like if a person is hetero, that's how they were made. If a person is homosexual, that's how they're made. Bisexual, asexual, that's how people are made. Who am I to stand in judgment and say this is right, that is wrong, you should live, you should not live? Who am I? Except consent, mutual respect, and no child sexual abuse.
Okay, why do people think sex education is not so important?
Why do they think it's not so important?
How to prevent ourselves from personal abuse?
Why do they think it's not important? I don't know. They're not thinking hard enough. Let them think about everything. Think of all the issues they see and try to figure out how can we tackle those issues. The second question was what?
How to prevent ourselves from personal abuse?
Personal abusing our own selves? Yeah.
No, I think they meant somebody abusing us. I think so.
Okay, so we may abuse our own selves also, and we may abuse another person may abuse us. So I think the first and the biggest sexual relationship is you have is with your own selves. So that is the first and foremost sexual relationship that we form. And that is where the parents put in this dirt, shame, and all that. So our idea is to take it all out and say, no, please experience your sexuality without any guilt. It's nature given. No guilt. Whatever you're feeling, right? It's part of your life. It's been given to you. Enjoy it. Right? It's such a blissful experience. Now, when you're expressing it and it is impacting another person, then please have responsibility over there. And responsibility here means no harm to yourself or the other. You can't say, oh, my girlfriend got pregnant, oh, now it's her problem. Bye, see you. This was an unconditional relationship and pregnancy had no place in it. Right? Now you tackle it. Or whatever. So that's not okay. So keeping that in mind, keeping human rights in mind, keeping consent in mind, mutual respect, that will prevent abuse. That will also understanding that it is not your shame if somebody abused you. It is their shame. If if there is rapes and all happening in the dark, in some dark alley, it doesn't mean that girls should not step out in the evenings or night. No, no, no. Keep the perpetrator in focus, restrict and restrain the perpetrator. Keep the boys at home. Something seems to happen to them once it is dark. Something happens to them. उनको पकड़ के घर के अंदर रखो. Why are you restricting the girls? They are not doing anything. So restrict and restrain the abuser, the perpetrator.
That is so true. Victim blaming happens so often because of that.
Yeah. Just stop it. Wherever in your conversations, and please don't forward those stupid WhatsApp gender stereotypical jokes.
Horrible. Absolutely horrible. Do you see the one?
Yeah. It's absolutely right to be gay. In my own family, we have children, adults of all different sexualities, different genders, and we are very happy.
Sorry, Minerva, I've accidentally muted you. You had a question to ask.
No, sir, I don't have any question.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Okay, any more questions?
I also, yes, I just wanted to make a point that I think actually, the point is that sex is actually such a healing experience. And it's actually the coming together, not just of the physical, but also, of the emotional, the spiritual, everything. It's just that in our society, it's not talked about like that.
Yeah.
If I've been thinking if we could get that, all of those aspects together, how it is. It's actually an exhilarating experience. It's not something just, you do it in the physical and it's over. So it is a coming together. It's a friendship. The thing is, we need to actually know how to talk about it in the correct ways to children.
Yeah. There are two questions. One I'll take right away. What is your opinion on asexuality? Absolutely fine. I mean, really, it is like asking what is your opinion about this particular flower that blooms. What is my opinion about it? It's beautiful. It's asexuality is when a person does not experience sexual attraction towards another person, and there are various gradations in it. And then there is the aspect of romance and attachment that is separate from the sexual aspect of it. We need to respect and accept all shades of sexuality or asexuality. Online sex, why not? Again, the same story. Be careful about your safety. What is being recorded? Who is taking screenshots? You will not know. You will not know. How much do you trust a person? Now, in physical relationships, when two people are together, we had this case, 10th grade, two students, intimate sexual relationship. Suddenly the girl feels that my photo has been clicked. She asks the boy, did you click my photo? No. And sure enough, 2 days later, boys in her class come up and tell her that her photos are circulating. So she brings it up to the counselor and all of that, and then we got involved in that situation. So now this girl, fantastic parenting. She said, it's not my fault. He did something wrong. So she took it up with the counselor. So I was talking to her later on. I said, see, anything that is on the internet is there for life. It's there forever. It can resurface at any point of time. Now, supposing you are, 20 years later, you are in some relationship, and there suddenly your photo pops up, and the person asks you, "Isn't this you?" What will you say? So she said, "I'll tell him there was a stupid fellow, and criminal intent. What is this? He took my picture without my consent and sent it on without my consent. He was breaking all the rules. It's his shame, right? Not my shame." I said, if your partner then leaves you, then she said, good riddance. That person doesn't know what's right from wrong, so I don't want to be with that person anymore. So online sex, no problem, but be careful about the safety. That's very difficult. Someone is in trauma because they were victim of sexual abuse. How can the person share their feeling with their parents or close ones? Yeah, sometimes it may be difficult to share with the parents or close ones, but do find somebody that you can share with. Sometimes it may be an experienced counselor, a social worker, an extended member in the family, in the neighborhood, your friends, relatives, somebody like that. But it's like this sexual abuse inflicts so much psychological wounds. So like any other situation where we are hurt, we need support to heal. There's only a limited amount of healing we can do by ourselves, right? So just like we go to a doctor, if the wound is deep enough, the surface wounds will heal. Yeah, my body will heal. But deep ones, the body can be supported by some things. No? So similarly, these wounds also, please do find people. And now with online counseling, the whole world is open. Right?
Now, what should parents and teachers do if they come across a situation?
Situation of what?
Anything. It could be abuse, it could be sexual, whatever. Work revolving around sex and sexuality and consent.
So if it is mutual consent, adolescent sexuality, you talk to all the children in your high school, middle school about managing sexuality, call and fold. Otherwise, do it yourself, but don't blame them. Don't pass some rules like, you can only touch each other shoulder to shoulder. Some schools did that, touch each other only shoulder to shoulder. It's a very complex, I can't cover it in 2 minutes. If there is a child sexual abuse, there are certain obligations under the POCSO Act, Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, that all teachers and adults are bound by. So there again, you need to proceed with caution and with care and caution. There's one question is about porn and sexual abuse. I don't think it is kind of directly linked like that. There is no study which has actually linked porn and sexual abuse like that. The watching of porn can be for various things, to learn about sex and all of that. But if a person has become addicted to porn, then there are issues. And they know when they're addicted to porn and they can't switch it off when they want to. Then the porn is in control of you. And that can affect your behavior, the way you look at people, what you expect out of sex and out of your own sexuality and other people. So it does mess up quite a bit.
Okay, Doc, we are way out of time. One last question. One solid reason why schools should encourage sexuality education?
So that you can really prepare your children to deal with what they're going through at that point of time and then be responsible adults.
Thanks, Doc. Thanks a lot. I mean, we actually had a house full. It's nice to see so many people coming on the show. And always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for coming on thing. And also for the participants out there, thank you for watching this program. If you have any comments, please write to info@hoopsters.in, or like Doctor messaged her email ID of Enfold, please write to her. And if you want to address any important issue, please let us know. We will try to connect you with some of the best domain experts to discuss those issues. Also check out Hoopex TV on YouTube for more videos from Hoopsters. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. Doc, that was wonderful. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Bala, for inviting me here. Thank you, all the participants. It was lovely.
Thank you.